We miscommunicate a lot, and it's hard to find one single person in this world who did not miscommunicate in their life. So today we are talking about some tips so that we can avoid miscommunication. My name is Shammy, welcome to my channel, and without further ado, let's dive in. My tip number one is assuming. We assume a lot. Sometimes some of our colleagues are saying something and we stop them and say, I already know what you're talking about. Maybe we don't. Maybe they are talking about something entirely different. So let's stop assuming and listen. So the tip number two is interrupting the speaker. As we already said, we assume and stop the speaker and then we say something that we already know. But maybe no, we don't know. So stop interrupting the speaker and listen to them carefully. Let them say and listen to them carefully, whatever they are saying. Tip number three is provide necessary documents. Sometimes we don't provide necessary documents and we say something and they probably didn't hear us carefully or they were doing something else. So when we do something, when we are saying something, we're talking about a project, we will provide them necessary documents. Maybe we're in a meeting and if we provide necessary documents in advance, our colleagues can go through the agenda or whatever we are discussing about, and they can also think about that point and come up with the idea, and we have a productive meeting. Maybe we can have a video sometime later about a productive meeting or effective meeting. Let me know in the comments below that if you want us to make that video or not. So if we provide necessary documents, it will be much easier to avoid a lot of miscommunication. Even after the meeting, they can take notes and in that document, and they can wrap it up later on. If they forget something, they don't remember something, they can always go through the document and take necessary actions. Tip number four is write better email. Sometimes we write an incomplete email, and what happens here, our colleague does not reflect to the discussion that we had maybe weeks ago or months ago. So they're having half communication here, and they can't really reflect what happened before. If we write a complete email, what happens here, even they forgot something or they don't remember, or they were not probably in that meeting or discussion, they still have complete picture in that one email. We have made a video about email etiquette sometime back. We're going to link in the description below or somewhere here. You can take a look and let us know what do you think about it. So if you write better emails, you will avoid a lot of miscommunication in future. And tip number five is observe non-verbal cues. Sometimes some of our colleagues are shy and they don't say a lot of things, but they meant something different. I have a colleague and I know that if he's not comfortable sharing some information, he is trying to look here and there, and I observe his physical movement, non-verbal cues, and then I understand that he's hiding something, and then I have to investigate what he is exactly hiding. And once I investigate and I got to know, and then I can help him, because sometimes they're shy, they're not able to say that. Maybe some of my senior doesn't want me in that project anymore, but he doesn't know how to convey this message to me. But it's totally fine. Maybe my boss is thinking about some better project for me, or maybe I deserve a trip, maybe I deserve a vacation. You never know. Don't assume negative things always, and help the colleagues who are shy. Always observe the non-verbal cues. Tip number six is open door policy. Sometimes we have a meeting and then we inform our colleagues what exactly we are doing, and then we are not available to them. If you are available to your colleagues, whatever miscommunication they have, whatever problem they have or questions they have in their mind, they can always reach out to you and cross-check. So this way you can avoid a lot of problems. You can avoid a lot of problems in the future. So always have an open door policy and be available for your colleagues. Be available for the project that you are working on. Tip number seven is letting your emotions dictate your response. Sometimes we are attached to some particular project, and then we don't take necessary actions because we are attached to that. But maybe a decision for us would be better for the project if we can detach our emotions. So sometimes even if you have the emotion, let your emotion be in the emotional place and detach your emotion while taking a decision. It's much better, trust me. I have learned in a very hard way. I have been emotional with a lot of projects, but then when I have detached my emotions and took a decision for the project actually thrived. Tip number 8, failing to account cultural differences. So I'm a different person. I grew up in Bangladesh. I was born in here, but I travel across the globe. And when I communicate with someone who was born and raised and always been in Bangladesh, it's difficult for me because my experience is different and their experience is different. So if I'm speaking to a Chinese or a Japanese or a Korean or an American or Canadian, we sometimes fail to communicate because we don't understand each other's context, each other's culture. So know that different culture people speak and write differently, they communicate differently. For instance, a high context culture people, they want to get to know you better, so if they ask you some personal questions, don't be offended. Whether the low context culture people, when they get to the point very quickly, don't think they are rude. It's just how they are. So when you know the differences, it's much easier for you to avoid a lot of problems and you can save your face for the future. Tip number 9 is misinterpreting the message. We misinterpret a lot. Somebody probably says something, but we have thought something else. So if we have some query, most importantly, most of the time, what we should do, we hear a message, we listen to them, we think it carefully, and then we have to repeat it after them. So if you have some doubt, just go and repeat after them. So like, did I get you right? Did I understand you right? Did you say something like this? So I'm going to do exactly this. You go to a restaurant and you see the waiter come and take an order for him and they repeat, because once they make a wrong food or wrong order, you will be upset. Also, it's not a win-win situation for both parties because the restaurant is losing one item because they already have prepared, and if somebody else is not ordering that meal, it's actually a lost project for them. So they always repeat after you. You can follow this footstep and don't think that I am telling you how to behave like a waiter. I'm just telling you to take a tip from them so that you can correct yourself for near future. Tip number 10 is being indirect. Sometimes we are indirect and we are shy and afraid to say something. You don't have to be. Direct doesn't necessarily mean rude, so you can always be humble and polite and being direct. Tip number 11, avoid difficult conversation. Sometimes we avoid a conversation because it's difficult to have with the person. So in such case, what I personally do, I have that conversation with me over and over and become confident, and I try to analyze what might they ask, how they might react, and how I'm going to deal with that situation. And sometimes if I'm having a difficult conversation with a colleague, I have the same conversation with some other colleague and practice myself in advance. So if you're confident, you can actually throw anything and everything to anybody. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be rude. Never be rude in a professional manner or a personal matter. Never be rude. Always be humble, nice and direct and very polite. Tip number 12 is think before you speak. So words are like a bullet. Once it comes out from the gun, you can't take it back. So words are so important, and these days words doesn't have much of a value because we say something, we don't mean that. So if you think before you speak, you will actually analyze, you're able to have that time to analyze what you are going to speak and whether it has a value or not. Saying something and not being able to keep that promise is a no-no. So think about it, what you're gonna say and whether you can make that promise in near future or not. Say only those words that you know you can keep. Tip number 13, ask questions. There is no harm to ask questions. Sometimes we are afraid to ask questions, and because we're thinking that, oh my god, what other people will think, that I didn't understand what they said. There is no harm. Most of the time, many people miscommunicate because they are afraid to ask questions. So don't be afraid, just go ahead and ask anything and everything. Keep that in mind. We are talking about over and over, don't be rude. Tip number 14 is be courteous. Sometimes some of our friends or colleagues, they come and listen to us very carefully and we are being sarcastic or we are not being honest with our conversation. So don't do that. Be honest and listen to them carefully, and whatever you say that from your heart. Your friend will understand, your colleague will understand. And always speak a language that your audience can relate to. Sometimes we speak very difficult language and our people or the people we are talking to, we're trying to communicate, they don't understand us. For instance, imagine 5 birds, they're like they're talking, but do we understand birds' language? We don't, and it is meaningless to us. Similarly, if you're speaking Japanese to a Chinese person, they will not exactly understand what you're talking about. So try to communicate in a language. I'm not saying about the exact language or literally language. It can be many different fields. Like even an English person may not know some difficult word. Maybe you are from literature background and they are not. They are like common people. So speak a common language that they will understand. If you have their literature language, you can definitely go to a literature core group and you can practice your literature vocabulary there. So try to always communicate with the audience you have in. Tip number 15 is check and follow up. Sometimes we communicate and we think we have done our job and it is not our responsibility to go and follow up. Like, no, we are trying to communicate, we are trying to get the job done. So it is absolutely our duty and responsibility to go and check and follow up. If something takes 3 months to continue some projects, so what happens here, you can always go and every week and have a follow up. So if there's a miscommunication, you can immediately look into it and you can solve that matter no matter what. Because if you wait for 3 months, then you will not be able to undo a lot of things, and to avoid this, you better go and follow up. So this was our top 15 tips to avoid miscommunication, but if you're still here, we have a bonus for you, and that is listen. Actively listen. If somebody is saying something, listen without responding to that situation. If you listen carefully, you will understand exactly what they are trying to say and you can respond mindfully. Sometimes we listen to respond. Don't do that. Listen, actively listen to avoid most of the problems we have in our life. There is a reason behind we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Speak less, listen more. So thank you so much for watching our video today. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you want us to make some specific video, you can also let us in the comments below. Thank you so much. See you.